Good morning, everybody. Thanks for coming out today for this beautiful day at Niagara University, an historic day. I'm going to fill you in a little bit on our guest speaker, and then he's going to talk for about 3 or 4 hours on his, just making sure you're paying attention. But as a freshman in 1957, Bill Gacioch knew when he came to Niagara University he could only afford his freshman year. He knew that coming in. But he went to see Father Ed Burke, and Father set him up in what was a new work-study program. He was assigned to Mead Hall, which is where all the Vincentian priests and brothers lived on campus. He waited tables and managed the switchboard for a number of years, for 4 years, all 4 years, I believe we were here. And Bill will tell you the story that his parents believed in good schools. And even though they didn't have the money, his mother told him, look at Niagara University, it would be the right place for you. And it ended up being the right place for Bill Gacioch. Today we are here because we are going to cut the ribbon on Mead Hall, which I mentioned as the Gacioch Family Alumni Admissions Center. Bill's gift of $2 million helped make that happen, that we could refurbish that hall, and it becomes the gateway to the university for admissions, for alumni, for guests of the university that come through that hall. And it is not Bill's first connection to the university. In 2007, Bill was presented with an honorary degree, and then in 2011 was presented again with the Dunleavy Award, a very prestigious award the university offers. Bill and his wife Nancy, who is here with us today, were presented with the Father John Lynch Award in 2000, and the entire Gacioch family, most of which are here today, which is great, were presented with the St. Vincent de Paul Award at the President's Dinner in 2010. Bill is currently the Chairman and Chief Executive Officer of National Property Management Associates. And I'm going to run through some of the family here because they are all involved. Michael serves as the president. His son David is the senior vice president of IT. And Bill's daughter Catherine Hannon is the senior vice president of human relations. It is a great day to be here at Niagara University, and it's my honor to introduce Bill Gacioch, a member of the class of 1961.
I haven't really done this, so bear with me. What I'd like to do is tell you a few of my thoughts about entrepreneurialism. We didn't know that word when I started. And then later on answer any questions that you have. I'm a little emotional today, so if you have any Kleenex, just pass it up. But the two thoughts I'd like to leave with you, it's a little personal touch. I had an advantage. My parents were very, very poor. So there's nowhere to go but up. But they were very bright in guiding me. I love to tell the story, and my family's heard it, so they'll probably throw something at me, how I didn't want to go to an upscale high school in Binghamton, New York. I wanted to go to the school close to me, where my buddies were. But my mom, who never had an education, my father, who went to 3rd grade, says, no, you're going to go to the school that we choose for you because we're your mother and father. We know best. What do you know at 13? I went kicking and screaming to this school. Very smart kid, parents were older, only child. We got to the auditorium the day of registration in the high school. My mother had an old house dress on. My father had his khakis and white shirt, old car. Go up to the auditorium to register. They look at us, who are you? What kind of name is Gacioch? By the way, how are you ever going to pronounce that on that building, Gacioch? My father took out of his pocket not the tuition for 1 year, but the tuition for 4 years. I had never seen that kind of money from people who, many times electricity was even cut off at our home for non-payment. Well, I grew up that day and thought if my mom and dad cared enough for me to go to that school, I better do it. Well, the same thing is with Niagara, as Tom Burns just said. My mother, who really never had a formal education to read, who kind of picked it up from her sisters who did, saw the Niagara brochure and said, you go up there. I think you should go there. I said, we don't have any money. And I'll correct Tom, I only had money for 1 semester. But Father Burke took me in. He says, you're the kind of young man we want to have at Niagara University. The Vincentians care about students. Niagara cares about students. Boy, that's an understatement. So I'm so excited to be here. I can't believe all the nice things that have happened to us in our life. Responsible are my wife, Nancy, and of course my children who are all in the business, Michael, David, and Catherine. But entrepreneurialism, we want to talk about that. As I said, I didn't know even what the word was back then, but I wanted to do something that I could create myself. I majored in accounting and corporate finance, and I got a job with an accounting firm through the student placement office in Washington, D.C. And what I'd like to tell you students is pay attention not to just the degree that you're in or the specialization you're in, but as you go along in your life, particularly right after college, listen to people who know what they're doing, who are experienced, because it may open a whole new avenue of an idea for you to do. I got positioned in Washington, D.C. and did work papers for income property. Clients of the accounting firm submitted their documents to us, and they put me analyzing how does income property work. I thought, gee, that's a great idea. If I ever got any money, I might like to do this. But of course, I didn't have any money. I was an ROTC graduate. I had a 2-year stint with the Army as a second and then first lieutenant. And when I talk about you to begin maybe a business or an idea, the general who I was assistant to at the Defense General Supply Center in Virginia said, you don't belong in accounting. You want to accomplish maybe a business, get into the securities business because there you make money, or get into some job that pays you for your efforts, not just a salary, so that you might be able to make a lot of money if you want to do something in business. So what I say to you here is, first, if you could ever do that, and you wanted to raise capital to start a business, a commission position, which pays you on your results, not just for the hours you put in, allows you to really build some capital. And that's what I did. In the Army, imagine, General Mack says, you don't belong in accounting, you belong in investments. He says, I'll give you off every day at noon, and you go get into the investment business. Just give me some good tips on the market. Well, it was like a duck to water. I did very, very well, and I built up some capital. Okay, you guys want to start or think about a business. I'm not qualified to give you .com information or some of the Google approaches, all the new things are out, because they're really, what I did is before that. But what I can tell you is, if you have an idea, have the determination, that's the byword, determination to see it through. You're going to be scared, you're going to be concerned, but if you have the right idea and you've studied it enough and analyzed it enough, there's capital out there. First of all, maybe from family, maybe from friends. There's all venture capital funds. There's all sorts of sources for capital to help you run a business if you have the right idea. Now, venture capital, be careful. You got a great idea, don't let them steal it. The devil is in the details of an agreement. If you have an idea to start a business and you need an investor or investors, have an exit strategy. Give them a good return for the risk they're taking, and above all, disclose the risk. That's every venture has some risk, and you try to mitigate it as much as you can, but every venture does have a risk. And you tell your investor or the person making a loan to you. The secret to business growth from the start is really, it sounds kind of cruel, other people's money. Doesn't that sound cruel? Well, you know what it is? You borrow money from a bank, that's other people's money. You pay an interest rate, you sign an obligation. So that's not a bad term to say that you start a business with other people's money. It could be your family's money, it could be a relative's, it could be someone that you meet. Explain your idea, explain the risks, tell them how you want to do it, and I'll tell you, the money is out there for the right kind of idea. And don't be afraid to run with it. The other thing that I want to emphasize again, that I just mentioned, and I want to re-emphasize it though, many people take a nursing degree, they take a particular degree in tourism, and because when you're young, you don't know exactly what you want to do. But whatever degree you have sort of sets you awake to be inquiring of what is in this world. So sometimes you might take a nursing degree and end up being an accountant. You might own a franchise. So don't think just because your degree is in a certain specialty that it limits you. I never thought that I was going to get in investment securities and then in residential real estate. Now, what I'm going to do is give you a little bit of a lesson, which I know is tough, on how residential real estate works and what I did. And then afterwards, because I don't want to talk forever, I want to answer any questions. I'm not totally qualified to tell you about a dot-com venture or something of that, but I can give you the fundamentals of how to get started. But let me tell you why it's so nice to do. You don't begin a business and have a business. We have hundreds of employees. I have a family that's in my business. It provides for them, provides for us. A business venture isn't a singular thing. It touches the hearts and lives of many, many people for the benefit. I kind of hate the attitude that's crept around in society today that sort of frowns on success. Success isn't just selfish. We have very nice homes, we have very nice things. I'm pleased that my children could go to college, my grandchildren can. But what about the hundreds of employees we have that are providing a life for their families? What about the over 20,000 tenants that are living in nice places because we built a business to provide it for them? So it isn't a singular selfish thing to be successful. Niagara had a philosophy and didn't even know it. They didn't give a student fish, they taught them how to fish. Think of that. That's what you do. Everyone that's just handed something doesn't quite seem to get the same result and the same appreciation as if they have to work towards it. And that's the nice thing that happened to me at Niagara. I was given an opportunity to come here, but I had to work. And of course, it was a lot less expensive back then. I don't even want to tell you what it was, because it's over 50 years ago that I was here, but don't tell anybody. I don't like age. My family knows that. But, okay, income property. Properties that you buy that can be rented to tenants. And I chose apartment complexes because if you have a 100-unit apartment complex and you lose a few tenants because they move, they change, you only lose 3, 4, 5, 6, 7% maybe of your income for that short time that they're gone. But if you have a commercial venture for offices, let's say, at a building, and you lose one tenant for a while, you're losing 25% of your income. Now, it doesn't mean that commercial property isn't a good investment. It is. As a matter of fact, it's less management intensive than having thousands and thousands and thousands of individual tenants as we do in our apartments. But I was afraid. I didn't want to, I wanted to be more conservative. I wanted to be careful. And you still can be careful and conservative in a business venture. You don't have to just throw caution to the wind. You analyze it, you think it. Some of the people used to say to me when I was in my 20s and 30s that, Bill, you analyze a property so strongly, so deeply, that it seems like you wring out the risk and then take the chance. Well, there was always a chance. I think I wore a diaper at my first closing of 40 apartments when I first bought them. It was scary. But okay, how does income property work? And I'll make this as brief as I can because I'm more interested in answering some of your questions. Well, for instance, in our apartment complexes, you find a complex and they give you the income it's taking in, the number of units, the expenses. You have to be a little careful. Sellers seem to exaggerate income and understate expenses. So that does take a bit of knowledge that you learn by looking at lots of different properties. But how does it work? It's called leverage. The same thing in any other business. You have a certain amount of capital that you need to put up, depending on the needs of the business, or in my case, the needs of the property. It's about 20%, or it was, for me to put up. So if I bought $1 million property, I had to have $200,000. Did that have to be all my money? No. If someone wanted to invest with me, not as an owner, but as a mortgage holder, I could get some of that money from those people. My first complex I bought, the sellers were a wonderful couple. It was a beautiful property. We kept it almost 40 years. They took a second mortgage. So here's what you do with income property. You try to analyze it that the income minus expenses make the purchase worthwhile. And when you do, you either put the 20% up that you've accumulated through whatever source you have, and then the financing comes in. And the one thing about multiple family investments is there's tremendously favorable financing out there. Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac and many of the banks, even some insurance companies, will give you 80% of the money to buy the property on a long-term basis. What do I mean by that? I mean perhaps a 30-year payout, 30-year term, or 25-year, with a balloon payment. In other words, it comes due. You have to renew the mortgage in 10 years. And you calculate that all in to see. Now, how do you make money in income property? First of all, you hope on the 20% you put down, there's a cash return on that money from the operations, income minus expenses, you hope. In addition, remember now, what's the nicest part of leverage and income property? The tenants are paying your mortgage by paying income. So every payment you make every month pays down some principal. That's being paid by the tenant, so that's a profit to you. You don't spend that profit, but it's called increased equity. The third thing is that there are very definite tax advantages to being active in the operation of your property. What do I mean by that? You can't just be a silent partner. You should have some involvement with the manager or management. And then the IRS allows you to take whatever loss that you have for tax purposes. And what creates a loss for tax purposes is depreciation. It's a non-spendable expense. It's really not a cash outlay. It's just a discount of the value of the property over a period of years. So generally, that results in you not paying or not having a taxable result on the bottom line. So if you, even though you've got your cash return, you've got some additional depreciations or additional write-off so that if you're employed in some other business or activity, as I was, you actually cut down your income taxes on that income that you earn from other sources. Now, how do you make money? Well, first of all, if you bought a property, and I'm just using $1 million as example, and you put 220% down, and over the years, you kept it for 10 years, you would owe a lot less mortgage on it. You would pay down a lot of money that the tenants paid with their rent. You could just sell it for $1 million, and your profit would be what you paid down on the mortgage that your tenants paid. But what we do, and what most anyone would do, is try to increase the profitability of the property. And that is raise the income if you can, and or lower the expenses, or both. Because income property isn't valued on what it costs to build. It isn't valued on the bricks and mortar. The only value is income minus expenses, each net operating income, and that determines its value. So if you increase the value, if you increase the net operating income by increasing income or decreasing expenses or both, your property becomes more valuable. So maybe then you get $1.2 million, $1.4 million, $1.5 million for it if you sell it. But suppose you don't sell it. This is the neatest, I can't believe that it's such a wonderful way to have a business. Say you increase the profitability where the value of the property goes up to $1.5 million. You don't have to sell it to make money. You refinance it for 80% of the $1.5 million. You get all your money back and possibly make some money, and you still own the property, and it's still producing you a return. Now that's what we've done. That's why we own thousands of units. That's why it was able to grow. And I don't expect you to grasp this in just a brief talk like this, but I'm certainly available to anyone to talk who might have an interest in that. But that's what we did. I have Nancy, I'll embarrass her. I have a wife who never questioned what I did. We talked about it, but it wasn't, well, I got to go ask my wife. I don't mean that I wasn't respectful, but she said, I think you know what you're doing. I want to give you you have the confidence. I support you 100%. But also, look what happened in this business. It's not just a selfish business. We're able to give, and boy, I'll probably cry at the ceremony, because I waited on tables downstairs in that building, and I was in the switchboard, and now the building is going to be named at us. Look at the good that making a business success has brought. And you know the other thing, we have a tendency in this world today, as I said earlier, to downplay success. Why? It's the American system. The system isn't perfect. The system is not perfect, but it's the best system that's existed in civilization. We should correct some of the wrongs of this free capital system, not replace it. And this is a little personal philosophy of mine, because I don't know anyone who's owned a business. Look at Castellani, look at the names on the other buildings. They were very successful, more successful than me, and look at what they've done. Nancy has given the largest gift to Damon College with the Fine Arts building. It's the Nancy Haberman Gacioch building. She supports a lot of charities, a lot of things, and so do all these other people that I've seen build businesses. Oh, I'm sure there's success. Look at Gates, the wealthiest guy in the world. All his activities now are philanthropy. Nice. So don't think that being a success is just selfish or one-sided. Sure, you have benefits for what you've dreamed up, and sure you have benefits in the way you might live your life, but I've not seen hardly anyone not give back and make the world better because they had success. I would like to, as I said, I wanted to be brief. I would like to answer some questions. I'll just say one more thing. There's a lot of franchise opportunities that have been very successful, but you have to be careful. The devil is in the details in franchise agreements. And you need to really read them and understand them and get advice. And of course, today, with today's internet, you can really find out an awful lot about anything. We didn't have that back then. So you want to, here's the sad thing that happened to a friend of mine. He started 3 very profitable cellular phone stores 20 years ago in Orlando, Florida. Growth area, terrific new industry, extremely well, did extremely well. 2 years ago, he gets a letter from the phone company. Under our original agreement, we are canceling your franchises with 10 days notice. We are now going to have company-owned stores. His 20-some people, store operations, his whole business was gone in 10 days with the right of a company had to close his franchises and take over. That's why I say the devil are in the details if you do a franchise, whether it's Dunkin' Donuts, whether it's Tim Hortons, whether it's any type of franchise. You need to get some advice. Some of the advice can come on the internet, believe it or not, and some will come from an attorney that knows what he's doing. I find it hard to believe that I could stand here over 50 years and think of, and I'm talking to the students now, I was scared. I didn't know what I was going to do in life. But don't be scared. Listen, learn, meet good people, get ideas from them, get help. Nothing wrong with a little help. And you'll have a very exciting life. And if you're a nurse and you want to be a nurse, be a really good nurse. It's a tremendous field. Entrepreneurialism isn't for everyone, but I'm so happy I did it. I'm so happy for my family, and I'm so happy for the places that we've been able to help. And as I said, I'll sure have tears in my eyes at 11:30 when we dedicate that building. So thank you very much. What kind of questions would I have from you? And I'll do the best to answer any. Yeah.
How did you find your lawyers that gave you counsel over the years?
That's a good one. We always kid. How do you tell when a lawyer's lying? His lips are moving. That's supposed to be a lawyer's joke. Niagara. Tom DiAugustino, who's been my friend since Niagara days, was a very strong practicing attorney in Buffalo. I relocated. I'm from Binghamton, New York, and when I married Nancy, who's from Buffalo, we located back to Buffalo area. I had a lot of respect for him as a Niagara student. He was doing well in his practice. I went to him. That's how I found an attorney. Then later on, as the business grew, you got other firms that were recommended to you that had more of a specialty that I needed. He still did some of it, but we also branched out with other firms. But your co-students who are going to graduate can be very good sources for help you might need in accounting, law, or anything else. Any questions? Yeah.
Did you ever experience such a great loss that it made you doubt the profitability of real estate investment? And if so, what?
Well, thank you. You know, my mom died. My mom and dad weren't married till they were 39 and 40, and they had me at 41, only child. Back then, that was kind of risky. And my mom died between my sophomore and junior year. And on her deathbed, she said, "You pray for me, Billy, and I'll take care of you." Well, boy, she's done a heck of a good job, because one of the senior managers of M&T Bank, who retired a few years ago, said, "Okay, Mr. Gacioch, you've done pretty well. Tell us of your bad ones. Tell us the things that didn't work." Maybe it's my Irish mother. Would you believe half my name is Irish with a name like Gacioch? But anyway, we haven't had bad ones, because the type of thing I got into, you could analyze very carefully. We've had some properties, make a lot of money, and some at times go down. In the recent recession, Florida had its ups and downs, but never to lose money. But I just been blessed that I haven't had bad ones. But if you do, you pick your pieces up, you realize what you did wrong, and you go forward. You just don't give up. The mantra that I'd love to leave you with, the word I'd love you to remember, is determination. You can do it by not giving up. Anybody? Yes?
What demographic did you target when you first started? Was it more of like a college-age student, or was it more of a higher end?
I wasn't bright enough. He asked what demographic did I look at? College students, or what type of properties or individuals? We goofed, or I goofed. College student housing is so much more profitable than regular conventional apartment housing, because it seems today they're rented by the room or by the student. Probably the income could be almost closely double. But we didn't do that because I had apartments in Dunkirk, which is right next to the University of Fredonia, State University, and I thought the kids would be too difficult to the properties. But here's what I did, and this is the mantra that's throughout our whole business, and Michael, who is president of the company, is 10 times smarter than me, agrees with this. We don't want upper end, because we have found that the real A-plus, beautiful looking place doesn't make you as much money as you think. It looks great. I don't want the lower end, because there's sometimes a lot of problems with difficult low income people. So we have all middle income properties, because I felt, and I've been right so far, that an average person needs a place to live. Just make it nice, make it clean, and our mantra is we want them to be the type of unit that we would move into if we had to. So we don't have high end, we don't have low end. We didn't target anything except what I'd say middle income properties. Now that's just us. There's obviously people who have done very successful in low income, have done very successful in high income, but we've just been in the middle. Anybody else? Yes.
How far into the investing did you get before you started hiring management companies for your property?
Oh, this is interesting. Thank you. How far did I get into it before I was hiring people to help with the operation of the properties? You don't have a lot of money when you start. I did quite well in investment securities. It's a commission business. You're a stockbroker. The more business you do, the more money you make. And that's what I chose to do after it being recommended to me, to build some capital. Nancy taught school initially when we were married. We didn't have children right away. We saved her money. I lived on the Army money that I was in, and then I worked, as I said, part-time. Well, I wanted to buy like a 12 unit first, and a 16 unit. And this is what I talk about, talking to people that are in the know. Very nice man who did some investing with me. Am I talking about right, or am I losing you in this vote, Mike? Am I okay?
Yep.
Okay. He said, Bill, you don't want to buy a 12 unit or an 18 unit. You're going to be the maintenance man. You're going to be the manager. You're going to be the collector. And you're going to be renting them. Save your money and make it large enough that you could have a part-time manager and a part-time maintenance man. So the first apartment complex I bought was 40 units. I got a retired lady that lived in one of the places to be manager for part of her rent, and I hired an early retired man who was very handy to be a maintenance man. I think if I had bought the smaller place and I had been beaten to death by the requests of tenants and the difficulty in collecting rents and the maintaining things, I probably would have given up. So my suggestion to somebody is you get big enough to at least have part-time help, and it shields you from the difficulties of owning. The trouble with people who rent apartments, they want the snow shoveled before it falls. They want the dishwasher fixed before it breaks. They expect an awful lot for their rent. Well, you need that buffer of person. So the very first one I did, I was able to get a part-time lady to manage them, rent them, and a part-time man to maintain them. Anything else? Yeah.
Do you need a license to run your business?
I'm sorry?
Do you need a license?
You do not need a license to own income property. And the person that works for you, if they work for you as an employee, does not need a real estate license. It's easy to get a real estate license. It's a very simple thing, but it's not required and for properties you own or employees you have. Now, if I manage, which we don't do, other people's property, or this employee worked at other people's property, they would have to have a license. Yeah.
You ever consider investing in like a commercial real estate property?
That's a good. I was too scared to do. Have you ever considered investing in commercial? Commercial is wonderful, and their fortunes have been made, and it's obviously less of a headache to invest in commercial because many times it's a triple net lease. What is that? The tenant pays everything. The tenant does the maintenance, pays the taxes, pays the insurance, gives you a check every month for the rent. But that doesn't mean it should be you, because fortunes and wonderful businesses have been set aside for commercial. I simply was a little bit afraid to have like that 6-unit or 10-unit office building and lose 1 or 2 tenants. It would be such a major part of my income. But commercial is fabulous, and many fortunes and many success stories and many wonderful results have been achieved owning commercial property. And the financing is there too. The key with this kind of income property is that other people's money, whether it's the banks, whether it's a relative, whether it's a second mortgage from the people, you're making money using that, and you're giving them a return back, whether it's the bank with the interest you pay them, the investor as part of the investment or return you give them. So it's a win-win situation for everyone. Anybody else? Yeah.
When you said that the property, when it goes from $1 million to $1.5 million, you refinance it then?
Yes.
Can you go into
Yeah, this is, when you have no money, and I certainly didn't, how do you grow? And she just wanted me to go over this refinancing. This is the secret to income property investing. Again, you buy $1 million property. They're going to want 20% down, $200,000. And you get that by your own money, your savings, family, an investor, whatever. The rest you get from a mortgage bank, let's say, or from Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac. Now she said, what do you mean if all of a sudden you increase its value? Its value is determined by the profitability of the property, not the bricks and mortar. I mean, they want to be in good condition. You have to know that too. I haven't said that. I mean, you need to study the construction of buildings that you're going to buy, get some opinions. There's lots of contractors that are honest that will give you a review of something. But anyway, she wanted to say, what happens when I have paid $1 million and because I've increased its net operating income, which is income minus expenses equal net operating income, then the property is worth $1.5 million based on the increased results of its profitability. You then go back to the lender, maybe the one you have the mortgage with or a new one, and they, if the property is proper, will give you 80% of $1.5 million. Well, that gives you all your money back and even a little extra. And what's the benefit of that? It's a loan. There's no taxes on you taking a loan. Oh, you put the money in your pocket, but you have a debt. So your mortgage then now is $1.2 million or whatever it works out. And you've actually paid back all the money that you paid, the $200,000, and you've got a profit over and above that, and none of that is taxable because it's debt. You're now going to be paying that debt off, not you, the tenants, over the years that mortgage is in place. Did I lose you on that? Because that's how we grew. That's how we have thousands and thousands of units and thousands of tenants. by buying properties that we could improve their profitability by increasing their income or decreasing their expenses or both, then refinancing them, and then using that money to buy other things.
Are you willing to tell everybody what you spent on your very first property?
Oh, sure. What did I spend on my first property? Now, remember, this is 1969. 40 units could be bought. I was a very tough negotiator. They were asking $250,000, and I got them for $248,000. That's all. But what happened? They were very nice people. They had a nice complex. There was a retired couple that maintained them. As I said, we had in that complex, which you're concerned about, you can't discriminate, but it just wasn't suitable for children or pets. It was more of an adult complex, which you thought was a little less maintenance intensive. But anyway, so I said to Mr. and Mrs. Metz, who were selling it to me, and I must have had 20 meetings with them, and I think they liked me. They knew I was sincere. I don't have all the 48,000. I walked into the bank in Buffalo, I'm sorry, and two banks, and here I'm in my 20s and scared to death, two banks fighting to give me a mortgage for $200,000. To me, that was like a fortune. I mean, but they wanted the mortgage because it would be a good mortgage for them. So I had to have, what, $48,000 plus closing costs. I didn't have it. So I said to Mr. and Mrs. Metz, I want to buy your place, but would you give me a $25,000 second mortgage? Sure, they said, pay it over a period of time. So then I only needed $23,000 plus closing costs, which I did have. So there's an example of using other people's money, but not abusing it. They got a return. I paid them completely over the term, but I also saw that the property could make expenses, pay the first mortgage, and pay the second mortgage, and also give me a return. So the first venture was $23,000 out of my pocket, plus some closing costs, which are about $3,000 or $4,000. That's called leverage. Anybody else?
Did competition ever affect your business? If so, how do you cope with that?
Competition. I always used to worry myself sick that when they built a new complex, and I had more stuff that was 20 years old, 15 years old, and I found I was wrong, that actually a competitive building had to usually, when it was new, rent for more than mine, which were not new. They were not slums, they were not run down, but they were 10, 15, 20 years old. And I found that that increased traffic and actually increased the rentability of my places, which might rent for a little less because the cost of new construction required higher rents. So no, I never was really affected by competition, other than a positive way. Anybody else? Yes, this is a good girl here. We're going to start her in business.
You own property in different states?
Yes, we are in Texas, Oklahoma, New York, and Florida. Now, I'll tell you, he'll be embarrassed, but my son Michael, who is president of the company, and that's a dream come true to have a business that your three children can work in and build. You don't have a better partner in the world than your children. But he was always interested in this income property business since he was 5 years old. He worked doing lawns, he painted apartments, he painted railings, he worked in the office. But when he got into college, he studied residential income property. And he said, Dad, I want to help you find some properties. And he was, unfortunately, at St. Lawrence University, but can't be right at everything. But anyway, he finds Oklahoma back in 88, 87. It's a state that suffered very badly from the oil and gas industry. And many, many properties and businesses were in bankruptcy. Well, I like to buy cheap. That's called a contrarian. If you could find something that basically could be good but is down temporarily, that's the way you can make a lot of money and a lot of good fortune. So he studied this and said, Dad, I think we should look at some places in Oklahoma. Well, I thought, Oklahoma? He says, so you go out. He was a junior, I believe, in college. So he went out and he said, Dad, it's a beautiful place. It's owned by a bank. They had foreclosed on it. It's next to a beautiful mall. He says, you got to come out here. Well, not only did I come out, we bought the property, and our largest holdings are in the state of Oklahoma. They're an extremely wonderful place. We just kept buying and buying properties that we thought were good, and it's worked out wonderful. So that's, how my son so greatly helped build this business. And that's another thing if you do a business. What a joy, and I'm saying it again, to have your children work with you every day. And then it provides for them and their children. But again, understand that you're not selfish. I get so upset today with all this talk of downplaying a guy with a fancy car. We used to see a Cadillac when I was little, and we admired the guy. We said, wow, what did he do? Now it's like, what, did you steal the money? Or are you in drugs? Or what? And that's sad, because to be successful isn't just for yourself. It permeates in employees, in our places, peaceful people, places where people can live, and of course, donations to the very nice things that can be helped. Am I preaching to the choir? Anybody else? Well, yeah.
You said to increase the value of your property, you had to either increase the income.
I'm sorry?
To increase the value of your property, you had to increase the income or decrease the expenses.
Or both.
Yeah. What was the best way of doing it? Was it making the income properties lower maintenance, or was it, just putting a little bit of extra money in there to make them a little bit nicer?
One of the things you find in buying an income property is many people don't do it right. Now that sounds, uppity. I don't mean that. Even the big companies. Now when I got into it, there weren't as many big companies, REITs, real estate investment trusts, which take money from lots of investors like you, put it in a pile and buy stuff and give you a return. Okay. He asked me the question, how do you know what to do to increase your income or decrease your expenses? Well, first of all, you do shop the properties in the area that you're going to buy. You see what their rents are, what their features are, what they offer, the condition of their places, the type of tenants, and then you compare it to what you're considering buying. You also get other statements from lots of realtors that have all this stuff for sale, and see what are other people spending to maintain their properties. And of course, if you have a number of properties that you've already bought, you have that experience to know what it takes to run them. So how do you do it? You do market surveys on rents, and you see that maybe by keeping your place a little nicer than someone else, you can get a $10 or $15 increase in the rent, which doesn't sound like much, but boy, added up over 100 units or 200 units, very much increases the income. Many times people are absentee owners of the type in owning income property. Let somebody else run it, and they're sloppy. They don't have the right kind of maintenance people. They don't have qualified maintenance. We try to have very talented people maintain our property so we don't have to call Joe the plumber or Ed the electrician, who is a very expensive, possibly. We have people on staff who have that capability and can do that. So that's how we increase the profitability, is checking. Obviously inflation has its, I mean, would you realize that I was scared to death when I bought the first 40 units? You know what the rents were? $75 for a one bedroom a month, $85 for a two, and $90 for two bedroom uppers. And I was scared that that was too much rent. When I sold them, they were selling close to $600 a month. Unbelievable. So that's inflation too, which helps you grow the value of your property. Any other questions? Well, I hope I motivate you to do whatever you want to do. I hope that you can see, no, I'm not here to brag about myself. I would feel very bad that you felt that. I'm just here to say that the world, to the students, the world is yours. Life is the art of the possible. Go for it. Thank you very much.
You have to remember that life is the art of the possible. Bill and Nancy and the Gacioch family, thank you for being with us today. We're going to cut the ribbon on the Gacioch Center in about 30 minutes, so it'll be a great day. Thank you to the students for coming with us today. I hope you enjoyed yourselves and took a little nuggets from information. Also want to welcome the Clunes who are with us today, great friends of the university, and they're here for all the great events for the university, so thanks to the Clune family for coming today on this great occasion for the Gacioch family. Have a great day, everybody.